Hey everyone! Before we open today's file, please make sure to follow us on Instagram at d.s.radio, where you can find all the images that go along with today's case. You can drop us an email at contact.dsradio@gmail.com. You can find all of our socials in the Linktree bio on our Instagram profile, including links to merch. If you're feeling especially generous, you can join our Patreon at patreon.com/dystopian simulation radio, where you can get access to our exclusive Instagram page and make suggestions for upcoming episode topics that you would like us to cover. Speaking of Patreon, thanks to our Patreons, Riff Cult, Cropley Crab, Cash Broadus, Raspberry Jr., Jason R. Nelson, Creepy Paper, Jamie Sook, Michael Laughlin, Lindsay Keller, Mike Wright, Greer Weaver, Kelsey Carruthers, Linz Gibbon, Drake Holvig, Only Child, Michael M, Wesley Akers, Riaz K, Emily Medeiros, Pip, Heather Wynn, Graves, Devon Sweatshirt, The Ordained Sinister Minister, and Philip Hoffman. Hi everyone, and welcome to Dystopian Simulation Radio. I'm your host, Linz.
And I'm your other host, Chris.
We just had a big chat about convenience stores.
We did. We'll save you the we'll save you that thrilling conversation. But we fall on very different sides of the convenience store war. We'll put it that way.
Kind of.
No, I'm good. Since the last time we recorded, I have been watching the Fallout show. Have you seen any of that on Prime?
Yeah, I've watched it all.
What did you think?
I thought it was really good.
Good. Had you played any of the games or know anything about them at all?
I started playing it, a demo of it, a couple of years ago, and then I stopped playing it. I don't know why. So yes, I played a demo of it. What about you?
I love the games. I absolutely love all the Fallout games. It's a really well done version of it. I mean,
right.
It's one of the more faithful video game adaptations that I've ever seen, which really, really helps. The story itself, fairly kind of simplistic, get from A to B, but I think the world itself kind of, fills in a lot of the gaps. And the cool thing is that I know, without even knowing where the story's going, there's loads more stuff, just in terms of characters and races and creatures and stuff that they can bring into it, and factions as well. So it'll be cool to see where they go in season 2, but I guess we're gonna have to wait probably about 2 years for that, maybe.
Oh no, not 2. That's too much.
Maybe less. I don't know. There was a writer's strike in the middle of the last one, so let's hope it's more like a year.
Yeah, it was really good though. I really enjoyed it, and I didn't really play the games, just that one demo. So if you haven't played the games, you'll still really enjoy it. Yeah,
that was one really cool thing. Someone asked me, actually, they were like, "Oh yeah, I want to watch it, but do I need to have played the games?" I was like, "No, not at all.
No,
not at all.
Really
it explains it all to you. If you've played the games, it's fantastic to give you a bit of background, but you don't need to know it."
Yeah, I can confirm. It's really good. You had a birthday as well.
Oh yeah, that as well. I did do that.
Yeah.
Yes.
I sent you a lovely card. Really
You
thoughtful
did.
one.
You did, and a lovely present that I'm wearing right now, actually.
Yes. Nice. I'm glad it fit. I just had to guess. I honestly did.
No, it was perfect. It's for those of you who are listening, which is all of you, because this is not a video podcast. It is a Mothman, and it says on it, "The Man, the Moth, the Legend."
Very Chris.
Yes.
Is there anything else we should share before we jump into today's episode?
Well, just before we do jump on, actually, to today's episode, we should give an extra special thank to all of our Patreons. Thank you very much for all of your support. So very quickly, thank you to Philip Hoffman, Pip, Emily Badeiros, Riaz K, Wesley Akers, Michael M, Only Child, Drake Halvig, Linz Gibson, Kelsey Carruthers, Greer Weather, Mike Wright, Lindsay Keller, Michael Laughlin, Jamie Sook, Creepy Paper, Cash Brodus, Cash Brodus, Cash Brodeus. I'm giving you all of the options, Cash. So one of these has got to be right. Who messaged me about this. Cropley Crab, Heather Wynn, Graves, Devon Sweatshirt, Ordained Sinister Minister, Polk Daddy, and Patrice Yambra.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you all.
We do. And also, if you are one of our Patreons, make sure that you check out the exclusive competition we're running for Patreons only, where you're going to win some free stuff that I haven't quite decided yet, but it will be cool. We'll send it out to you. So this is a Suno AI song competition. So check out all of the rules, how you can submit it. You can submit this even if you can't play an instrument. I can hear Septembrio crying in his sleep.
Speaking of Septembrio, this week we have a very secret Patreon. It's so secret we don't know what it is, but it's something that Septembrio has made for us. Septembrio does our intro song. He's a musician. Just check him out. He's Septembrio over all of his socials. But yeah, on Patreon, we'll be opening a surprise from Michael 8 of Septembrio, and we don't know what it is. So that'll be waiting for you if you join. Scared.
But we'll find out. So join us over on the Patreon, which is patreon.com/dystopian simulation radio. But you don't have to join us if you don't want to, although that might make you a bad person. You can go over
You might go to hell.
Bad things might happen to you.
You're terrible. It's like those Instagram things where people are like, share a picture of March or bad luck for the rest of the year. And you're like, no, stop it. And you know what? It's so bad that I sometimes do it and then delete it like a second later. Like that's how bad things have been for me for the past 3 months.
Well, the bad thing that will happen is if you don't sign up to the Patreon is that you don't get our Patreon content, which, you know, is worth it.
Yes, Chris, please stop hexing the people.
But of course, you can just go over to our regular old Instagram, instagram.com. No, that's not how we go there.
Instagram, http://
You need to go to Ask Jeeves and say, what is Dystopian Simulation Radio's Instagram account? And he will say that it's at d.s.radio.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
I don't think anybody called Jeeves sounds like that. But moving swiftly on.
Yes. So, are you ready, Chris?
I am.
Just a heads up to the listeners here, we will be talking about diet and food in this episode, so if that's something that you might find triggering, please feel free to skip this and listen to a different episode from our archives. Chris, Linda Laura Burfield, does this name mean anything at all to you?
Not a sausage.
A little bit of backstory here. Linda was born in Carver, Minnesota, in late December of 1867. She was the oldest of 7 children. At 18 years old in 1885, Linda married a man named Edwin Perry, and the marriage produced 2 children. Following their later split, Linda relocated to Minneapolis without them in pursuit of a career. Imagine that in the 1800s.
Wow, okay.
Mm-hmm.
What was her desired career?
Well, she studied under a man named Edward Hooker Dewey,
Okay.
a doctor who pioneered skipping breakfast and therapeutic fasting. He was so into it that he wrote a book on it where he claimed overeating was the cause of most diseases of the body and mind, pretty much all of them. And he thought that he could cure physical ailments and also insanity with his breakfast skipping methods. Obviously, Dewey hadn't heard of being hungry. So, Chris, what do you think about this concept of like skipping breakfast and fasting and everything?
I mean, I've done it before. I went through a big period of my life of not eating breakfast,
Right. Was that for like a health reason or just because you didn't feel like it?
I used to prefer not eating breakfast. I don't know why. I just used to prefer. Now, I'm not now. I have it every morning, but then also during periods of my life when I've been dieting, I have skipped breakfast just as a way of getting less calories, basically.
Oh, right. Like diet.
And
Yeah, you were dieting. So
yeah,
you, mhm.
I am dieting at the moment as well.
Aren't
But
we all? Yeah.
I am eating breakfast, so I'm not
Mhm.
doing that. But I am doing the fasting bit technically, just in so much as not eating past a certain hour
Right.
or before a certain hour.
Yeah. So it's sort of a kind of a thing that people commonly do
Mm.
when they're trying to lose weight. It's not like unheard of, and people still do it today, I suppose.
Yeah, when it's responsibly done, it can be part of a proper weight loss regime. But what isn't is just like not eating.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, everyone's different. So kind of, people do it, not unheard of, right? But if you were suffering from some terminal illness or insanity, Chris, do you think that fasting would be a good cure for these things?
Probably not. Um,
Right.
I mean, at that point that you've been declared legally insane, you might as well try anything, I suppose. But I don't think that not eating will cure your ailments, unless, of course, you've been existing entirely on a diet of psychotropic drugs.
If you've been MK Ultra'd, maybe you should leave your
Yeah,
coffee for a few days.
absolutely go cold turkey on the MK Ultra.
Yeah. So unsurprisingly, Linda followed in the footsteps of her predecessor, and she began touting fasting as a cure-all. She shared the belief that fasting could cure all illnesses, mental and physical, and that it would rid the body of toxins. So she believed that bad digestion was the root of all illnesses, and that the body had to be flushed of all of these toxins to cure itself. Now, this kind of treatment extended from minor issues like, people who sometimes suffer from upset stomachs and digestive problems, then toothache in some cases, to more serious diseases such as, various cancers. So it's basically an alternative kind of treatment. It's not, you still find things like that today, right? If you couldn't get access to an actual doctor or something, maybe you'd start having some kind of superstitious thinking, or maybe you'd hope that some sort of people might use
Hmm.
herbs to cure something. They might go on a weird website and buy some kind of pills or oils and hope that whatever's wrong with them can be cured by that. I mean, it's you do hear about these like snake oils and kind of alternative treatments for things that they just won't fix. So have you ever fell victim to something like that, Chris?
I can't say I have. I've never gone in for any of these sort of like fad diets, in like where you've got to take a
Mm-hmm.
pill or you've got to do anything like that. So no, I
Well,
haven't.
maybe not just for dieting, maybe just for, if you've ever felt like off or ill, like have you known anyone who's like, oh, I've started taking these?
Oh yeah, I
And
mean, like every so often, like an old family member will come out and be like, oh, you've just got to start taking cod liver oil pills. That's it.
yeah,
Like
I
take.
mean, maybe there's something to that, but it's not going to cure a terminal illness,
Well, no, but to be
right?
fair, it was never touted as curing a terminal illness. That's a
Yeah.
different kettle of cod liver oil. Um,
I have a Thai friend whose classmate in high school bought like this oil to grow a mustache or like facial hair. And the
mhm,
whole premise of the product, well, bearing in mind he was about 14, the whole premise of the product was that if you used it several times a day without washing it off, it would stimulate hair growth. And that's
mhm.
something you still find today. But for him, it didn't really work. But what did happen was that all the dust and dirt in the air began to stick to the oil, which he had like smeared on in the shape of facial hair. So he had a little dirt mustache that kind of looked like a Homer Simpson 5 o'clock shadow. And even though like he knew it wasn't a mustache, he kind of like was still believing that he had grown something and he just could not wipe it off. So like even in modern times, people kind of still fall for things like this, or they might get a bit desperate and just turn to some kind of alternative way. And remember, we're talking about the 1800s, so
Mhm.
people would see this and go, you know what, that kind of makes sense. I
Yeah.
don't know shit about the body. Early in Linda's alternative medicine career in around 1902, she was actually questioned by the police after the jewellery of a patient who had died in her care went missing. This patient, it turned out, had died of starvation, and the decedent's family members accused Linda of having something to do with it. But with no evidence to back up their accusations, Linda just kind of slipped through the net and went on her merry way. So her fasting treatments weren't exactly fasting treatments. They were a bit more extreme than that. It started becoming clear that Linda Burfield was a bit of a liability. It's kind of scary that an ill family member could go in for treatment and end up dying of starvation, and then her valuables go missing. So, it can happen. Maybe treatment isn't right for someone. Maybe they were already ill. Maybe they were already so ill that nothing was going to help and they just died while in treatment. And maybe the jewelry was just misplaced, right?
Yeah.
But still, people were excited about this kind of fasting treatment, but they were also chattering like, oh, someone's gone for this treatment and they died, and people kind of looked over it at that point. Linda went on to meet a man named Samuel Hazzard, and they married, making her Linda Hazzard, which is fucking perfect. If only there was some kind of warning sign, like an appropriate surname.
How could we have known?
Dr. Hazzard. It's not funny, but it is. So Samuel had already been married twice, and he had an alcohol problem. He was all over the place, to be honest, and he'd neglected to divorce one of his ex-wives before marrying Linda, and he spent 2 years in the slammer as a result.
Wow.
When he got out in 1906, he and Linda had become popular for all the wrong reasons due to the scandal, so they decided to relocate to Olalla, Washington, which is such a good word to say. So Linda had a goal. She wanted her own sanatorium, and she was willing to work hard to get it. She was eventually able to afford a property, and she dubbed it Wilderness Heights. And this name likely came from Linda's belief that nature was also a cure for disease, which back then I suppose people did believe,
Mm-hmm.
There was like sun therapy. They would take you to the seaside for your insanity and just sit you in front of a beach because they didn't know what else to do. So, it wasn't that weird. The only problem was that this place would later earn the nickname Starvation Heights.
Oh, no.
If that's not a horror movie already, it really should be.
So, was her MO basically, you will lose weight or you will die?
Well, kind of. You're not completely burying the lead here, but yeah, I mean, think about it. I suppose a disease can't live in your body if you're fucking dead.
Yeah.
So she was kind of delivering on the promise, but like...
We guarantee that you won't have it one way or another.
Yeah, but, she did have literature out about this, and she did seem legit. And, she studied under a medical doctor. So...
Was she a medical doctor herself? Did she have any qualifications?
We will get to that.
Okay, right. I'm asking all the right questions at the wrong time.
Yes. No, you're going down the right path and we're going to get right to it. But before we do, here is a picture of Wilderness Heights.
Wow.
So this is where she wanted the patients to go and, go through the treatment. So what do you think about this place, Chris? 1800s. You sign up for this elective therapy, I suppose, and you turn up here. What do you think?
I mean, it looks quite nice. Looks like a little house on the prairie. There's...
Aww.
I mean, it's still...
That was such a cute reference.
I've never seen that show. But, well...
What?
Well, I mean, I used to see the introduction titles and then I'd switch them off because I hated it.
I can kind of understand that, but I still watched it for some reason.
No, but the Power Rangers was out when I was a kid. I was no, Little House on the Prairie.
Power Rangers or some kind of Mormons.
Yeah. I mean, it looks lovely. It looks really nice. I mean, it's a big property. It's got a kind of awning / balcony with no handrails, but it does seem to also be under construction a little bit potentially at this point. But no, it looks like a really lovely facility. It certainly doesn't look sketchy or like any corners have been cut. It looks
nicer than a hospital.
Yeah, it looks really nice. I mean, yeah, for a weight loss retreat place, it looks lovely.
Yeah. Now Linda had a place to admit her patients for the treatment she would prescribe. Any guess what the sort of treatments she prescribed would be?
Not eating, and then for people
Yes.
who did not comply, wiring their jaws shut.
Oh my god. That sadistic. You just came up with that like right off the dome.
Sorry, you get one chance. You stole the cookie from the cookie jar. Now your jaw's getting wired.
But yeah, Chris, of course, it's starvation. So patients it was kind of different for all the different patients. They all kind of got a different prescription. They would be permitted to eat like very, very limited amounts of things like tomato, asparagus juice, vegetable soup that had been really, really diluted in like a really small portion of it, and a teeny tiny sip of orange juice on a spoon here and there, which is just psychotic.
Yeah.
So she wasn't completely set up yet. As you saw in the picture, it was a big place and it was under construction for a while. So she needed to generate some more cash to put into this. Although she had no medical background or degree,
Oh, great.
she managed to actually begin practicing medicine in the state of Washington due to some weird clause in the law that stated that some practitioners of alternative medicine were permitted to practice in the field.
Right.
That's how she got her foot in the door.
So she was branding herself as alternative medicine then.
Yeah, she did kind of insist that she was a doctor, but she'd never, properly studied or anything. She had had some training under that guy we mentioned before who also favoured this sort of fasting method, but hers was completely extreme. Really extreme. So, Wilderness Heights and Linda Hazzard's starvation methods, which could go on for months at a time, Chris, by the way, did actually attract some patients. And people did die. Months, Chris. Months without food.
Yeah, that's
a death sentence.
At a certain point, doesn't your body kind of go into kind of emergency mode, and you kind of, I mean, if you're at the point of starvation, you start kind of swelling up and stuff.
Yeah, well, children typically get really swollen stomachs. People just kind of eat their own fat reserves, and then they just start to decline and become weak and fatigued, and your organs will start to fail. If you haven't ate food, you starve to death. People generally are aware that you can't not eat food. So whatever literature, books that she had put out, or advertisements and things, she must have been extremely convincing. Some patients, they went through the treatment and they survived. Maybe they didn't have a terminal illness, but they survived it, and they were sort of singing her praises. But a lot of people died.
Yeah, it sounds like she's pushing things to the extreme, and when you push things to the extreme, yeah, some people will die. But on the flip side of it, some people won't. And I guess she's just banking on if we can get 51% on the side that don't, we can say the majority survive.
Yeah, which is absolute madness. In 1908, 2 women died under Linda's treatment. One was a Norwegian lady who was under 40 years old, named Daisy Maud Hugland, who starved to death after 50 days of fasting. And another lady died in just completely similar circumstances. They starved to death. This didn't give Linda pause for thought, though. She actually doubled down and believed in her theory of starvation as a cure so much that she put it into words, and she published it in a book called Fasting for the Cure of Disease. And she would go on to publish more literature, so people were consuming this. They were, you see it in print form, you see it in a book, you think that's legit, Now, I managed to find a copy of this book. I read it because I had some time constraints, but there were some pictures inside of the book as well that I'd like you to take a look at and describe to the listeners, Chris, if you would.
Of course. Okay, well, from the first pictures that you sent me, it's 2 in a book. On the left-hand side, we have a gentleman who looks more or less emaciated. He, you can see all of his ribs. He doesn't look like he's lost weight in a healthy way. I'll put it that way.
No, not at all. Look at his face. You can see his skull, the outline of his skull.
And it says at the bottom, victim of drug habit, photograph depicts appearance at the end of his fast of 50 days. And on the right-hand side, we have a rather more healthy-looking gentleman. Although it does say 6 months after completion of fast. Oh, wait, hold on. Is this the same guy?
Yes.
Oh, right. Okay, so hold on. So on the left, then, he was an absolute...
He was skeletal.
Yeah, skeletal after fast of 50 days, but then 6 months after that, he's at a seemingly healthy weight. A complete physical and moral transformation was the result of the treatment in this case.
So, survivor.
Yeah. A survivor. Seems like he's gone okay, but what it doesn't show you in this book, though, is that this is like picture 2 and picture 3, but we don't see picture 1 where he started. Because maybe he looked like picture 3.
Yeah.
He's just bounced back again.
Well, probably. Because, she thought that she could starve the drug habit out of him. But we don't know what he did after that. You can say, oh, he had a complete moral transformation. It's like, well, he was so weak, he's not going to go out looking for drugs or alcohol. He can't leave. You don't know what he's doing 6 months. He looks like that. He feels better. There's more to it than just not doing it while you're starving in Wilderness Heights.
Well, this next picture is a young child. I'm going to guess maybe about 1, maybe. It's a relatively young child and a lady holding him. They look quite happy together. And it says, Mrs. E.S. Extreme. Is that her name?
Mrs. E.S. She's not a wrestler.
Oh, right. I was like, Mrs. E.S. Extreme. After this picture, she bust out a skateboard and did a 720.
A Mountain Dew.
Punctuation, please. Right. Mrs. E.S. Extreme bilious symptoms with stupor and nausea. Fast of 22 days while pregnant with child, whose picture is also shown. Photograph is taken 6 months after the birth of the child. So this child then is roughly, less than 6 months old. Generally, having been through this myself, generally, when you're having a child, you're advised not to do anything extreme, like fasting or skateboarding.
Yeah, and I mean, stupor and nausea while pregnant, kind of pretty common.
Yeah,
when you're
growing
like
a
human
sickness.
being. Yeah, it's like, but somehow this woman has found herself at Wilderness Heights, or should we call it Starvation Heights, while pregnant, and Dr. Hazzard has had her starving for 22 days.
Wow. Well, that wouldn't fly today. I'll put it that way.
No, I just think that's absolute insanity.
Yeah, it's nuts. I mean, thank goodness that child survived, but that could have been a very near tragedy, and it wouldn't surprise me if she's got a few small skeletons in the closet.
Mm-hmm. So, in this book, Hazzard describes everything about her fasting programs, including the deaths.
Oh.
She actually recorded the deaths, but conveniently, if someone else did the autopsy, they'd be like, oh yeah, this person died of starvation. If she did the autopsy, it would be like, oh, they had a heart attack or something else, which is clearly a result of starvation, but you're just not saying that.
She didn't call them deaths, she called them quitters.
Chris. But those deaths, they kept on coming. She was really, I feel like she was really believing in it, but she was also taking advantage of people in an absolutely cruel way. There was a man called Earl Edward Ehrman, and his death actually got some media attention. So he was an engineer who died under Linda's treatment, and this generated some newspaper headlines accusing Linda Hazzard of killing her patients at Wilderness Heights Sanatorium. He kept a brief diary of his treatment throughout February of 1910. So these are just really brief entries, and if you would be so kind to read them for us, Chris.
Of course.
We'll get a little insight. It's basically what he ate and sometimes how he felt going through his treatment.
February 1st. Saw Dr. Hazzard and began treatment this date. No breakfast, mashed soup dinner, mashed soup supper. February 5th through 7. 1 orange breakfast, mashed soup dinner, mashed soup supper. February 8th, 1 orange breakfast, mashed soup dinner, mashed soup supper. February 9th through 11th, 1 orange breakfast, strained soup dinner, strained soup supper. February 12th, 1 orange breakfast, 1 orange dinner, 1 orange supper. I'm presuming that he's eating an orange. It's not just like... February 13th, 2 orange breakfast, no dinner, no supper. February 14th, Valentine's Day treat, 1 cup of strained tomato broth. February 15th, 1 cup of hot strained tomato soup, night and morning. February 16th, 1 hot strained tomato soup, AM and PM. Slept better last night, head quite dizzy. Eyes yellow streaked and red. February 17th, ate 3 oranges today. February 19th, called on Dr. Dawson today at his home. Slept well Saturday night. February 20th, ate strained juice of 2 small oranges at 10 a.m. Dizzy all day. Ate strained juice of 2 small oranges at 5 p.m. February 21st, ate 1 cup settled and strained tomato broth. Backache today just below ribs. February 22nd, ate juice of 2 small oranges at 10 a.m. Backache today and right side just below ribs. February 23rd, slept but little last night. Ate 2 oranges at 9 p.m. Went after milk and felt very bad. Ate 2 small oranges 6 p.m. February 24th, slept better Wednesday night. Kind of frontal headache in a.m. Ate 2 small oranges at 10 a.m. Ate 1.5 cups tomato soup at 6 p.m. Heart hit up to 95 minutes and sweat considerably. February 25th, slept pretty well last night. Ate 1.5 cups tomato broth, 11 a.m. Ate 1.5 cups tomato broth, 6 p.m. Pain in right below ribs. February 26th, did not sleep so well last Friday night. Pain in right side just below ribs in back. Pain quit in night. Ate 1.5 cups tomato broth at 10:45 a.m. Ate 2.5 plump small oranges at 4:30 p.m. Felt better afternoon than for the last week.
He died in March.
Ah.
How horrific is that? That is literally just liquid. Small amounts of liquids, other than the oranges.
Yeah, I mean he's on a sort of liquid cleanse, isn't he?
Cleanse. It's insane.
Yeah, I mean this is the type of thing that if somebody was going to do it, they might do for a couple of days now to kind of reset your system, but not for, well, at this point 26 days, and it would go on and on and on. It's, I mean, the only thing I can say, very good for the people that grow oranges in the area.
Chris, but like imagine that. And by that point, right, you've, for a month, and some people were doing this for 3 months, 4 months, longer. For every day that you're not eating, you're getting weaker. You're losing muscle. You're not going to be able to think properly.
I was going to say that's the other side of it with weight loss. It's not, it has to be fat loss, because weight loss can be muscle loss, and that's not what you want. You know, it's entirely possible to lose fat and gain muscle at the same time. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, this is just going to be just wiping your system of everything. And as we saw, these people in the pictures, people who are emaciated, that's because their bodies are just eating themselves.
Yeah, and it's really sad. Like, to hear this torturous diet that he's on, and you hear about how in pain he is. He's looking in the mirror. His eyes are yellow, red streaks. Like, obviously, something up with his organs at this point. He can't sleep because he's in pain. He can't sleep because he's hungry. It's really sad and horrible. And this is like, you put your trust in someone that you think is a doctor. You go to their sanatorium, and basically you are just getting weaker and weaker while in their care and on their property. It's actually terrifying.
And then the other thing as well, at that time, there would have been no communication. You know, you would have had to, at best, send a telegram.
Yeah. If not a letter. Mm-hmm.
You know, and that's going to be slow acting.
And how are you going to send that?
Exactly.
You can't get out of bed and walk to the post office. You're in this rural area in Wilderness Heights. It's like an absolute horror movie. It's terrifying. So this guy's case, although it was a bit more high profile and it was getting headlines, it didn't really stop a steady flow of new patients. and people were still making their way to Wilderness Heights in the hope of being cured of their ailments by the Hazzard fasting program. We kind of know what it looks like to be a patient under Hazzard's care. There was a common thread that ran through all of them. That was starvation, as we know, and also, Chris, very lengthy enemas.
Excuse me?
Very lengthy enema sessions. Enemas all day long.
Right, okay.
As part of flushing out the toxins.
Okay.
That was basically it. Being starved and getting a buttload of enemas.
Literally.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I mean, what she wants to do on her own property is, entirely fine, I suppose.
Yeah, but, I mean, can't imagine signing up for that.
Well, you'd be surprised what people would sign up to in order for a miracle cure to weight loss. Or these other symptoms that they're supposedly being trying to cure of.
As if this wasn't all dark enough, Linda began taking advantage of her patients financially. So remember, earlier in her career, she got accused of stealing jewellery from a patient?
Mm-hmm.
Well, it turns out that kind of was a thing. So there was like another common thread running through the types of patients that she had. They all kind of had money or land, or they came from like a bit of a rich background. So there was one gentleman who flew over from England to buy some property in Washington, and he became interested in Hazzard's technique. He signed himself up as a patient. No surprises here. She told him that he needed to fast. This time, however, she managed to gain control of his assets. When he ultimately died from starvation after 50 plus days, there was nothing left for his family but like $70 or something.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, so was she actively trying to kill her patients?
Well, I guess we'll find out because we have a few more examples. And to me, it seems like it's a bit, I'm a bit torn, like, I'm not torn, but it's kind of strange because she obviously believes in it. But she's also, I don't know if it was an opportunistic thing she was doing, like, I have these patients here, and then maybe she's gone, you know what, they're a bit rich. If something happened to them, that would be a shame, and usually things do happen under my care, so...
It would be a shame if one of these people starved to death.
And I inherited everything they have. Wouldn't that be a shame? But honestly, we joke, but that seems to be... I don't know which came first, but I do know that, earlier she was accused of stealing jewellery from a patient in her care who passed away.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to get a lot darker, but we're gonna reach a conclusion. So this guy... Oh, no. So... people seeking out his care, not always, but usually had pretty good jobs and either money or property. So a man named Lewis Ellsworth Rader, who was a magazine publisher and a former legislator, he also died under her care. He was receiving his treatment in a hotel. And when his family and friends got wind of the whole starvation thing, they tried everything they could within their power to stop him, but he wouldn't stop the program. So Linda had him scurried away to an unknown location where he carried on the treatment and eventually... What do you think happened, Chris? Oh, he starved to death. And it honestly sounds like a cult or something at this point. Even though his family tried to help him, he's like, no, I'm going to finish this. I'm going to see it out. I don't want to leave. I mean, obviously he's been starving for quite a while, so he's probably not that great at making decisions. Like we said, your brain just stops functioning. You can't make decisions. You get confused. So Linda managed to get all nature of people to sign up for these treatments, and not all of them were done at Wilderness Heights because, like we said, it was still under construction for quite a while. Many of the patients stayed at hotels or in these apartments in Washington that she would rent. And because they had all volunteered for the treatment and they didn't want to leave when family tried to get them to leave, nothing was really done in the eyes of the law at this point. Eugene Stanley Wakelin was the son of an English lord, and he was found shot dead on Linda Hazzard's land in 1909, and he was just 26. It was originally ruled a suicide, but obviously after investigation later on, people speculated it to be a murder. So Linda Hazzard had got control of this guy's finances as well, but she later came out to find that despite his family's sort of rich background, he didn't really have anything.
Right.
So this poor kid Like, she's obviously thought he's from this rich background, son of an English lord, he's probably loaded, gets controls of finances. Did he try to run away from the property and they shot him?
Well, I mean, it is rather conspicuous. What was she doing with all of this money? Was she living a lavish lifestyle, or was it purely to keep the starvation business going?
I was thinking, if you put people, like, obviously these people are paying for the treatment, right? And I'm not sure how much it was, but later in the story, we get sort of an idea. We're coming up to 2 victims that kind of got this whole thing shut down. But she never really managed to complete Wilderness Heights for quite a while. For years, actually. So that was always under construction. I'm not sure exactly how much she was getting out of these people.
So did she have a family? Were there people in this with her?
Her first husband, she broke up with him, remember, and left the kids with him and went off to pursue this medical career. Then she's married Samuel, who is sort of an alcoholic. He was kind of in and out of prison. Is he like heavy or something? So he's the only other one there. It's him and her. Him and her in Wilderness Heights.
Starving people left, right and centre.
Exactly, but making money from it. This whole case is sort of like blown open when 2 well-to-do English sisters, Dorothea and Claire Williamson, discovered Linda Hazzard's methods in a newspaper advert. The sisters were really rich. They came from a rich family and they liked to travel. So imagine like 2 young women in the 1800s traveling around by themselves, shopping and seeing the world. Like, they must be really rich, first class all the way. They had an interest in alternative and holistic medicines, and some people have described them as having a sort of medical anxiety about being ill all the time, maybe like a touch of hypochondria. So they see this advert for Linda's treatments and they're like, oh, that would be great for us. And they ordered Linda's book and they read it while they were staying at a hotel in Victoria, British Columbia, Canada. And although neither of the sisters were like gravely ill in any capacity, I think they just had like really, really minor things wrong with them that anyone would have, you know, now and again, headaches, stomach aches, whatever. They decided that they wanted to go through the Wilderness Heights program, and they were really into this, like, this whole nature thing too. They were really like, oh, that sounds nice. Like you said, when we saw the place, oh, that would be a nice place to get some treatments. In early 1911, they organized to meet Linda in Seattle, Washington, and the sisters were overjoyed at the thought of receiving this alternative treatment at this beautiful nature resort. But when they got to Seattle, Linda informed them that they would be undergoing all the fasting and all the friggin' hour-long enemas that they were so hyped about in some, like, apartment in Washington. So they're going to be stuck in a small apartment together, starving and getting enemas all day long.
Lovely.
So it's not...
Was it at least a nice hotel?
I'm not even sure. So the bathtub of the apartment was fitted with like a canvas sling because these enemas were so lengthy and the girls would get so weak, and they were put on that extreme calorie restrictive diet that the previous people were put on. Just standard procedure at this point. This went on for around 2 months before Linda Hazzard decided it was time to transfer the sisters to her home in Olalla. Before they checked out, Linda Hazzard showed up with a guest. Any guesses who she showed up with, Chris?
I'm really hoping this is really something unexpected, like the Frenchman who can't stop eating.
Terrare. No.
Terrare.
As random as that is, Chris, no. She shows up with a lawyer.
Oh.
After 2 months of starving them, shows up with a lawyer. And he's got documents in hand, and those documents are wills.
Right.
So these wills stated that Linda Hazzard would receive a yearly salary from the sisters' estate, and that she would handle the women's funeral arrangements if they were to, you know, somehow pass away. So basically, she gave herself power of attorney and had written herself into the will.
Well, she's She's got a system down, doesn't she?
It's insane. So obviously this doesn't make Linda Hazzard look good. In fact, it looks as if she's taking on wealthy patients, starving them to the point where they're too weak to leave and make decisions, and gaining financial control of them before they die. And she doesn't have to murder them because they're voluntarily fasting. It's evil.
Yeah, she's sort of long form convincing people to kill themselves.
It's just slowly killing someone and having them think that it's their choice. Isn't that one of the most insane things you've ever heard someone come up with?
It is. It's awful. It's awful. But it's sort of, she's doing it under the guise of helping people as well. And it's not so much as like, as soon as they get there, she stabs them. Mm-hmm. It's like, no, we'll see what happens. I mean, you'll probably die and I'll probably inherit all of your money, but let's just see what happens.
But why is a doctor writing themselves into wills?
She's not a doctor.
Exactly. Exactly.
That is the answer right there, Linz. She is not a doctor.
I think she would argue with you if she was here. So, and it was all going to plan for Hazzard, it seems. That is until Dorothea and Claire's childhood au pair, Margaret Conway, got wind of what was happening to them from an anonymous source who sent a telegram to her explaining the situation. She had an inkling that Dorothea had gotten the message out to her. So you are right, Chris. There was very limited ways to communicate, letter or telegram, and Dorothea somehow had gotten a telegram to her old childhood nanny. So Margaret had helped to raise the girls and she cared about their well-being, so despite being in Australia at the time, she boarded a ship to Canada, and from there she made her way to Seattle. So when Margaret finally arrived at Linda Hazzard's home, she was met by the husband, Samuel. Samuel told her that one of the sisters, Claire, had died and that the surviving sister, Dorothea, was insane. Well, great wellness program you've got there, Linda.
Yeah, that's I mean, to be fair, that's quite some commitment anyway, because you think the amount of time that it took the telegram to reach Australia and then for her to reach Canada. I mean, that's a long way to go.
Yeah, like she was so worried about them. So she shows up and one is dead and one is insane. But Chris, didn't they say that fasting cured insanity and all kinds of ailments?
Well, it does if you already came in with insanity, but these two, they came in without insanity. So unfortunately,
is that how it works?
Like that's the transfer that happens.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, no.
Margaret had to go through the horrific process of actually viewing Claire's body, which, as you can imagine, no longer looked anything like her, as she had starved to death. It was like she didn't even know who she was looking at this point. So she's like, okay, that's Claire. Claire's passed away. Well, let's go see Dorothea. So she goes to Wilderness Heights, where she finds Dorothea, and she was met with, again, an unrecognizable skeletal version of the woman she once knew. Now, we do have a picture here, Chris, and it is really quite shocking to look at, so prepare yourself to view this and describe it to the listeners, but this is what Margaret found.
Oh, wow. Okay. This is an extremely emaciated woman. The majority of the body is covered by the dress that she's wearing, but you can see from her head that she hasn't barely got any meat on her at all. She's got sunken eyes. Her cheekbones are overly pronounced. You can see, just in general, she's stick thin. This is not a healthy woman.
No, it's actually really jarring. Like, if you can imagine, the nanny who had raised them knows them as these pretty rich 1800s ladies travelling around having a great time. Then she shows up to Wilderness Heights and finds this. And this would be the reality for a lot of the patients that died under her care. Only they would never have had anyone to intervene and successfully. But imagine showing up and trying to convince this person, like the other families did, please, you've got to stop this. And you're looking at someone who appears like a skeleton, and they go, no, I'm going to see this out. And you know that they don't have the capacity anymore to sort of, or maybe even the energy to develop the will to want to get up and go,
Do you think this is obviously only taking place because of the time that it was. I mean, you wouldn't be able to get away with this in anywhere close to modern day.
I mean, like, there is still cult. There is cases like this, you know, in some rural pockets of here and there. There'll be something going on all the time, but
that's more of a specific, like, you know, following some kind of cult, whether they call them that or not, some sort of religious-esque type of thing. This is not a weight loss program.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, if a Jane Fonda workout had like half of the people die, I'm pretty sure she would have been on federal charges.
Yeah, hopefully.
Mr. Motivator would have been done for war crimes.
Chris! Oh, if you don't know who Mr. Motivator is, Google it or YouTube it. You will not be disappointed. Right, Dorothea is found in absolutely shocking conditions, and she was also not living in the main property. She was living in an outdoor shed type building.
Lovely.
Like, honestly, looking at this picture, I feel they just put the dress on her because they knew someone was coming to visit her. That's how I feel.
Yeah, quite possibly.
I just feel like God knows, like, she could have even been chained. Like, that's not, you know, anything that I've read, but I just feel like looking at that is a person that is not being cared for, like the hair and everything. That's a person who is just being neglected until they starve to death, surely.
Mm-hmm. And how many people, you know, were they, quote unquote, looking after at the same time?
You know what? I'm not sure if they had multiple people in there at the same time, but I'd imagine so. Oh,
right. So once you know the Village of Death opened, you'd imagine that he's clearly got multiple rooms, but if they're doing it out of a hotel room,
yes,
maybe it is only one or two people, and they're just sort of like, "Can you hurry up and die? We've got another person joining us soon."
Yeah, and that's actually terrifying, isn't it? Hiding patients from their family members when they find out, having them in this hotel and that hotel. It just looks like someone's checked themselves in and decided to not eat. It's actually evil genius levels of sort of getting something from someone. It's extremely...
Yeah. As I said, it's sort of like a long-form way of murder. But you're convincing people to cause their own deaths. I won't say kill themselves.
Yeah, to cause their own deaths. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because they don't think they're going to die. They believe in this, you know, that they're going to be cured if they can just get through this next day. And then it's been months. In front of Linda Hazzard, Dorothea sang her praises, but behind her back, she begged Margaret to take her away. So she must have been scared. She didn't want, quote-unquote, Dr. Hazzard to know that she wanted to leave and needed to leave and that she'd probably sent the telegram. So Margaret let Linda know that she planned to take Dorothea away, but Linda resisted, saying that she had power of attorney over Dorothea and that she would be staying. Not only that, but she was also wearing one of Claire's dresses. The sister that died. She was wearing one of her dresses.
Yeah, she's not a nice lady, this Dr. Hazzard, is she?
Awful. And you know, like, they were rich, so they would have had beautiful clothes. And she's saying, "You're not taking Dorothea away," while wearing the deceased sister's dress who died under her program. That is psychotic.
Yes, she's not, yeah.
Margaret was obviously completely freaked out and unnerved by Linda Hazzard, and rightly so. She needed backup, so she got in contact with Dorothea's uncle, a man named John Herbert, and asked him to help. So this uncle was actually living in the US, and he got there pretty quick. And he went to Wilderness Heights, and he gave Linda a piece of his mind. Linda Hazzard told John that the sisters owed her $2,000 for the treatment.
Ooh, that's a lot in 1800s money.
Especially for killing one of them and starving the other.
Not a nice lady.
So he paid her half, and Hazzard released Dorothy to Margaret, who took her away. And John Herbert was completely flabbergasted, like we are, by what happened to his nieces in the hands of Linda Hazzard, and he wanted payback. So this is where someone tries to hold her accountable and stop her. So he contacts the British Embassy, who in turn contact the authorities in Kitsap County. But Kitsap County didn't have the funds, and they wouldn't take it any further. But when Dorothea said that she would cover the costs, the prosecution went ahead. Linda Hazzard was finally arrested in the summer of 1911. Now let's take a look at the mugshot, Chris, because you haven't seen her.
I haven't, no, actually, no, I haven't seen it.
Do you have any guesses of what she might look like? Linda Hazzard there. Starvation doctor.
I'm going to guess that she is dripping in gold and diamonds and various other things that she's lifted from the corpses of her dead weight loss patients.
Oh my god. Right, here we go.
Okay.
Just an awkward silence.
She just looks like an old 1800s lady. She's got her hair up. She's got. She looks a healthy weight. She doesn't look. I was half expecting to come through and be an absolute porker, but she isn't.
Chris, you can't say that.
Yeah, she just seems like just a bit of a normal woman, really. This is a mugshot, so she's got she's clearly posing for these pictures here as a side profile. But yeah, there's nothing really particularly special about her. So if she was living the high life, it's certainly not showing in her appearance.
No, obviously she took Claire's beautiful dress off for this one, maybe. Who knows? So the trial started the following year, and the media went wild about this fake medical doctor who had been starving patients and taking financial control of them. Linda tried to twist the accusations against them and claimed other medical professionals were just jealous of her amazing starvation cures. She said she was being attacked for being a boss bitch and that people just hated her natural medicine. But, the evidence was stacked against Hazzard, and actual medical professionals weighed in. So obviously she was found guilty, but of manslaughter, and she got sentenced to hard labour with a minimum of 2 years to a maximum of 20 in Walla Walla. Remember that Offspring song?
I was going to say that's the first thing that came to my mind, Walla Walla.
She got out in 1915, so, 2 years, not just over 2 years. And she eventually got a full pardon. With her image ruined in the US, she headed over to New Zealand and unleashed herself on the public there, continuing with her quackery. A few years later, she came back to Alala with the money she made in New Zealand and finally finished building the sanatorium that she'd always dreamed of completing. But gone are the days of Wilderness Heights. She was now the proud owner of the School of Health.
The School of Health?
Yeah, the School of Health. And despite everything, it actually did okay up until 1935 when it burned to the ground.
Did one of the patients get tired of strained cold tomato soup for breakfast, lunch, and dinner?
I honestly hope so. I really honestly hope so. So in 1938, Linda became sick. She was getting on in age at this point. I think she was 69 or 70. She was almost 70 years old. So what do you think she did, Chris, when she got sick?
Did she go on a weight loss diet?
She starved herself and died.
Well, at least she practiced what she preached.
Yeah. But that honestly makes me think that she really genuinely believed in the treatments.
Yeah.
That is just mind-boggling to me.
It sounds like she really did believe in what she was doing, but she got caught up in maybe building this retreat or the financial implications of running a business, and kind of just saw an opportunity and took advantage. But I don't want to excuse her for any of that, though. It's cold and calculating, starving people for a period of time and then just having a lawyer rock up at their door and being like,
exactly.
Oh, hey, we should make you a will. No, there's no cost. Don't worry about that.
She knew. 100% she must have known. Otherwise, why bring the lawyer?
Yeah.
But it honestly threw me off when I read that she starved herself as a cure and died. Was she hoping that if she survived, maybe she could say, oh, I starved myself back to health, and have a success story of her own practices or something? Or
probably.
Who knows?
That would be the ultimate sort of, if you're able to say, oh, when I was at my darkest day, I found solace and I practiced what I preached. And, man, look at me now. all of my ailments, I'm not sick anymore. I'm dead.
Maybe she was like, it's 50-50. Like, if I survive, this is going to be one hell of a testimony.
Yeah. Well, I mean, either way, it's win-win, isn't it? Because either it's a hell of a testimony or you don't need to live to see it.
Yeah. That's a very positive way of looking at a very fucked up situation, Chris. But yeah, Linda Hazzard is considered a serial killer and a quack. And she's thought to have at least 15 victims. And that's the story of Linda Hazzard, Chris.
Well, I guess thank you for that. What a horrible lady.
Every now and again, we got to dip our toe back into the old true crime stories.
Yeah, so she's considered a serial killer then, so as actively.
Yeah, people consider her a serial killer. I feel like if you look at a person who is dying in front of you and you allow that to happen and you take financial advantage of them, I think that's probably what you are. Yeah.
Yeah. But usually you'll see this happen, occasionally you'll see horrible cases of carers doing this, taking advantage of, vulnerable people, and then, getting their assets transferred over to them. But usually this happens once, maybe twice, something like that, before they get rumbled in the modern day. But back then, obviously, it was a lot easier for things to go unnoticed on a mass scale. And it seems like that's maybe what's happened here.
It's so scary. Honestly, it sounds like something out of a horror film. I wonder if there is a movie about it. I didn't actually look that up. I know there's books if anyone wants to read a bit more about it, because we just sort of, outlined what happened here, but there is books about it, at least one or two. So if you want to look more into it and find some more answers, you're welcome to do that.
There's a short movie.
Is there?
But that seems to be about it, really. There's a couple of documentaries and things like that, but it does seem to be in a theatre production, potentially.
That seems to be a theme with the cases I cover. There's always some show about it.
Yeah, but it definitely is. They'll do anything in the theatre, man.
Chris!
Yeah, it looks like that there was a 3-star production in 2019.
Ooh, they'll do anything in the theatre. They did do SpongeBob SquarePants.
How far is too far for a perfect cure?
Ooh.
Yeah, but that seems to be about it. And also, I just realised that her name is Hazzard, not as in a hazard, but as in the Dukes of.
Yeah.
There's two Zs, two Zs in there. Excellent. Well, Linz, thank you very much for this. It's rather cruel and disturbing. I think this one's disturbed me a little bit more than other things, just because I don't know why. It's just the nature of it. It's not. Usually, if when we do murders, there's a horrific act and it's awful. It's this, that, the other. But it's the victims haven't been conned into their own deaths usually. But this is something that we've definitely got here.
Yeah, it's really disturbing. And when we were talking about terrare and then we were talking about diets and stuff, I just got to thinking, like, initially I was looking for, the most crazy diets that people have done, and it was quite lighthearted. Then I found this and I was like, oh my gosh, I have to share this. Like, it's...
Yeah, I mean, terrare would have been her ultimate challenge. I think that would have been like the irresistible force meets the immovable object with regards to that.
You could have ate her and solved a lot of problems.
Yeah.
Well, Chris, let's just concentrate on that instead. Superhero terrare coming in to save the day. But yes, she's no longer with us, so we're safe in that regard. But let's all be vigilant about the kind of snake oils and strange products on the internet that claim they can do a thing for us, and let's all stay healthy.
And actually, in a weird way, we've kind of come back. I won't quite say full circle, but now it's a lot easier with TikTok and Instagram Reels and just the internet in general for people to start spouting miracle cures.
Yes, and they do a lot more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they do. We saw it during COVID, drinking bleach and all of that stuff, and it's scary how quickly these things can be picked up. So yeah, just always make sure you just vet whatever you're listening to. out there, because it can be quite easy for people to fall victim to things. Something like drinking bleach, that sounds pretty on the nose stupid, but then there's other more subtle things that you wouldn't know. So always do your research.
Yeah, and stay healthy, everybody. Being healthy is more important than anything else.
So, Linz, thank you very much for that today. Next time we'll be back, and it's yours this time, so that means it'll be mine next time. And I've got a good script in the works. It's going to be a fun one. I'll put it that way.
Yes, awesome. Well, we need it after this. Well, thanks for listening, everyone, and thank you, Chris.
No problem at all. Thank you very much. And remember, out there listening to this, have a sandwich.
Yeah. Or some rice. Whatever you like to get at 7-Eleven.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.